So, in the midst of all of the mental rambling I've gone on in the past few weeks after UFC Freedom 250, mainly about Justin Gaethje and what's next for him, partially about Alex Pereira and his response to his own loss, which was very, for lack of a better term, coward-like. I forgot one specific fighter that's been on a bit of a tear recently, and has pretty much always been on the rise, despite some recent shortcomings. Diego Lopes, was not so long ago shut down by one of the greatest fighters ever, Alexander Volkanovski, recently made a move to lightweight, and has since been dominating. His performance at UFC Freedom 250 was nothing short of fantastic. He is such an exciting fighter, one of the most explosive fighters in terms of movement in the UFC I've ever seen yet. And it has helped him to really just amass a considerable number of knockouts. And he is saying that what's next for him, he's recently said that pretty much inadvertently said that through a media post, that what's next for him is a fight against a big name at lightweight. I personally would like to see him fight Yair Rodriguez. Yair recently made a move to lightweight as well. And I know it would technically be Diego fighting downward in the division instead of upward towards a big name. It's still a big fight. Diego and Yair have had beef for years and have had a run-in with each other on live TV publicly during a pre-fight press conference where they almost came to blows. It was a whole altercation. It was beautiful. It was dramatic. It's what I would like to see in a fight between them. So it kind of frustrates me that Diego kind of isn't looking forward to that in terms of, his statements about it in the media. I'm sure Yair will continue to call him out because of how potent the bad blood is between them. But I'm not sure when we'll get that fight. Hopefully it's sooner rather than later, but it might be whenever Diego finally gets the belt or, gets a shot at the belt and loses and then has to fight down. And I'm not sure when that will be. So I guess the Diego versus Yair fight will have to be put on hold. Now, there are two names that I feel like are incredibly realistic for Diego right now, especially given how emphatic his win at UFC Freedom 250 was. Those two names are Charles and Arman, the two fighters on the media post. Arman Tsarukyan is very close to a title shot. I don't like the odds of him fighting Diego or even Charles a second time. I think Arman is a shoo-in for the next title shot. The only issue is that Justin Gaethje has publicly stated that he's looking for his next opponent in the winner of Max Holloway versus Conor McGregor. And I think it's because he secretly knows that Conor's going to beat Max and Gaethje wants a red panty night. But I think Gaethje should do the right thing for his division and fight the contender in his division. The contender is Arman Tsarukyan. The only reason why Arman hasn't fought for a belt all this time yet is because Arman screwed himself over and got on Dana White's blacklist after pulling out because of some back issue the night before he was supposed to fight Islam Makhachev. Granted, it was an awful move on his part and on his team's part, but he's done so much since then. He's been incredibly active, and he's done the smart move of hanging out with a bunch of streamers, which has put his name out there even further, not just in the MMA spotlight, but in the entertainment spotlight. So it's a great move. And sure, it could be a move that was backed by how much money his family had, regardless of him fighting, but it's a great move overall that makes him noteworthy, and adds some more popularity to his name and to his career. And I think it almost assuredly should make him the next title contender at lightweight. I'm not sure if he is officially, because again, he's somewhat still on Dana White's blacklist, but who knows? Who knows, really? So Arman's still a potential suitor for a fight against Diego Lopes. But the other more realistic choice for Diego, the second guy in the post, Charles Oliveira. Charles, the minute Justin Gaethje beat Ilya, or technically the minute Ilya's team quit on the stool, Charles spammed his Instagram story with media posts that were pretty much calling out Justin Gaethje. And as much as I love Charles and would like to see a title strapped around his waist yet again, he needs to truly deserve it. I don't think the BMF belt deserves. I don't think Charles winning the BMF belt is what's the word? I don't think Charles deserves a title shot because he won the BMF belt. He didn't even win the BMF belt the BMF way. He won it by just grappling, which isn't really a BMF fighting style. So I'm not sure Charles deserves a title shot just yet. I think he really does need a win against one big name. And although Diego is still pretty much rising through the ranks, he's a big name already. He's done a lot of great things at featherweight, and those great things have followed him into lightweight, making him a pretty big name. So if Charles were to beat a Diego that it has been recently rising like a shooting star through the ranks, I think that would be enough for Charles to then call for a title shot. So Diego versus Charles, I think, is the best next move in terms of what's next for Diego Lopes. It would be a blockbuster of a fight. Obviously, no bad blood there. Charles is a guy that's very lovable and he likes to pay respects to everybody. So it wouldn't be a fight that's fought, off of hatred or anything like that. But it's still a fight that's fought between two guys who are incredibly hungry and want a title shot. I would argue Charles wants a title shot more than Diego, although Diego obviously wants it. Charles has been obsessed with becoming the UFC champion again ever since he lost it. So it's a good fight. It's a great fight to make. If you were to ask me who I think wins that fight between Diego and Charles, I'd have to go with Diego. I'd have to go with Diego. Charles is a bit too reckless. Diego can be reckless at times too on the feet. He was reckless at UFC Freedom 250, where he was losing the fight before getting that knockout. Charles has the grappling threat with how strong his jiu-jitsu is, but I think Diego's good enough on the ground to evade getting dominated by Charles, like Charles did Max Holloway in their BMF title fight. So I think Charles is in trouble in this fight. I think in probably pretty much one of the first exchanges, Diego will drop Charles and maybe even knock him out. So I'd go with Diego. His explosiveness is second to none in the UFC currently, and I feel like in these exchanges that will get bloody, that will get reckless and fun to watch, I think Diego will have the upper hand with just how explosive and also precise he can be. With counter punching and basically punching and kicking, close range. I'd say in close range more than long range. Just I'm talking about in like pocket boxing exchanges that Charles is also not too bad at, but again can get really reckless with. In incredibly close exchanges, Charles has been known to leave his chin a little bit, too exposed, like he did against Ilya. So the best next move overall is for Diego to fight Charles, and in that fight, I'd have to go with Diego to win. Probably, I want to give Charles the respect of surviving round one, but I don't really see it happening. I see Diego coming out the gate, just like Charles usually does too. Both of them come out the gate swinging, hungry for that immediate finish. And I think when both of them do that against each other, Diego's going to come out the victor in round one, clipping Charles probably with a counter punch that's explosive as heck, right on the button of Charles's chin. He sends Charles to an early canvas snap in round one. Still a good fight though, a good matchup, and a fight between two guys who are hungry for a lightweight title, or even at the very least a lightweight title shot. Let me know what you think.